Om Shanti. This is a video from Romford in England. My name's Andrew from Inner Space in Romford, Essex. And the subject we're going to cover today is overcoming anger. And I'm sure that everyone on the planet has got anger, and probably we've reached a point in time in which people really believe that it's not possible to overcome and remove anger completely. And I think that's one of the main aspects of the Raj Yoga meditation, is that the belief of Raj Yoga is that once upon a time all souls on the planet didn't have that level of peacelessness, that level of irritation, frustration, consternation, and there was no anger whatsoever within the human being. So we've got the being, which is the self, the soul, the very subtle point of energy, which is the true identity of the self, playing the role through a body which we acquire a false nature through, in which we're taught and teach others as well to fight for your rights and to make a stand and to not back down. And if you back down, it's looked on as cowardice. And this is the programming, if you like, of this material, physical, human consciousness. And the soul in a state of soul consciousness is different to the human consciousness. And perhaps the reason why people haven't been able to overcome anger, or one of the main core points why anger doesn't get removed, is because they believe in it. They believe in the anger gets the work done. They believe in a love and law, but more like a love and anger or self-righteousness, which obviously becomes an unrighteousness when this emotional disturbance of anger is there. And I think the reason why that actually happened, such a deep programming of that belief system, is because they could feel the anger emerge up from nowhere, just not necessarily needing a trigger of the external, but just manifesting anyway. This is the latest thing that I've learned anyway, that there's such an anger that doesn't need a trigger. It just emerges without any reason. So most things do have a reason, a catalyst, a trigger to make them emerge. And of course, the person that's developed such a habit of anger, because it becomes a stronger and stronger habit the more you work on, the more you act on anger. Action is a big part of anger, because it means it's being brought from the mind through matter, and it becomes not only an impression on the mind but an expression as well. So that expression we then call karma. The as you sow, so shall you reap. It's something that's come in to action. So something's irritated or frustrated is the catalyst. Someone says something that's against your self-worth, or criticizes us, defames us, slanders us, all connected very deeply with our self-worth, a test of our self-worth, which is all really everything is that causes consternation and frustration. Even if your self-worth is being tested on the fact that you rely on certain things or dependent on certain things and they're being taken away, like, job cuts and pay cuts and people cutting you with comments about you or to your face. And these things, it emerges an ego to defend itself. So as soon as the defense mechanism kicks in, then there's a feeling to offend back again, to retaliate, or to actually keep it inside where it causes a lot of damage, if not dispersed. So the good news really is that we're talking about feelings that emerge from our past are come into the present, and they actually create our future. So there's three aspects of time connected. Anger is already there in the subconscious, and it comes into the conscious because of something, a cutting remark, a job cut, pay cut, all the cuts, or the feeling of loss cause this trigger to manifest this anger. And really, if you didn't disperse it, to change it, to transform it, then it would build up like a pressure cooker and have a damaging effect on the health, which is why in some places in the world they have, in their workplace, they have a picture of their manager that they throw darts at, or they have a picture at home that the manager doesn't know about and put it on a punch bag so they can punch it. And this is the release that people talk about, to release the anger, but you're not turning the gas of the pressure cooker off, you're only taking the lid off for a short period of time until it recycles and something else will come to irritate. Because of the habits that we've created in this life and past lives, there is a sanskar of anger, a sanskar of rage, depending on the level of anger. And all we're doing actually is slowly but surely turning the gas off. So this is what it means by developing a peaceful, pure state of consciousness, one that has no contaminants, in which there's no, if a test comes along, you don't feel it to be a test, because there's nothing there in your emotional stockroom or your emotional subconscious. And the subconscious is full of emotions. When a person reacts badly to these irritations, then they cause an increase in the anger of the subconscious. So it relents in the conscious mind, in our conscious awareness, but it goes into our stockroom, into the subconscious in a more powerful way. So people are creatures of habits for that reason. If it's their tendency to get angry as a reaction, then be angry that they will. And no matter how much psychology, no matter how much therapy one gets, you can't actually get to the very core of it unless you change your consciousness from a physical, a gender-full, a nationality-full, an age-full, a culture-full, everything about your identity, if criticised, can make you angry. And it doesn't actually make you angry, it's the trigger for anger to come. And the only actual way to change that consciousness is slowly but surely, gradually, to become more and more aware of the inner self and less aware of the outer self. Because this anger doesn't just emerge and people are acting on it, but they're also resenting. It can be a rage inside, it can be a hatred inside. If it's fed then the rage and the anger will eat the person up and cause a lot of physical illnesses, possibly cancer, possibly many other things. Your immune system goes down the more anger and rage there is held inside. And then, you may feel that you've let yourself down after so many years of this build-up, or this cycle keeps going on, to a point where you get realization that you're not going to allow this to control you anymore. Because the anger is it's a vice that controls. All vices control the human being because of his faulty consciousness of living as a human, far outweighing his living as a being. So for that reason, we're making efforts right now to actually disperse all the anger and allowing peace to start to take control once again. So you're using up the negative energy in the form of peace. You're using up the negative energy in the form of love. And you're using up the negative energy in the form of happiness, because unhappiness is your potential for happiness. Anger is your potential for love, because that's where it originally came from. And similarly, peacelessness is your potential to become very, very, very peaceful, very, very, very light. All the emotions make you feel heavy, make your mind feel like a ton weight, and a light mind feels like it can fly, feels like nothing can weigh it down. So we're actually reducing the weight gradually until the complete removal takes place. And that's why we need to really understand the first lesson, if nothing else, the first lesson of being a soul, thinking, speaking in a deep state of peace. Action's very important for peace to take place. If you think about learning to drive a car, is that when you can't learn to drive a car in a classroom thinking about it. It's got to be actually something that's very practical. And you get people that have had a couple of lessons of driving the car, and they say, it came second nature to me, I'm a really good driver. Well, they're not, because becoming a good driver means to be experienced out on the road in all weathers, in all conditions, in all situations. Part of being a good driver would be no road rage, for example. So there's other ingredients to take on board, and this all comes through action. So karma was always to do with action. As you sow, so shall you reap, or as you act, so you get the return of that action. So it all starts off inside, but there's nothing, the fact that there's anger inside is not because what you were brewing up in your mind. It's because actions took place based on that brewing up in the mind. It came into action. It came through these physical sense organs. And what happens is that the knowledge that's in the soul, the knowledge that's in the mind about something, causes that knowledge to manifest in the form of feelings. And the feelings that we have aren't as strong when they're not in action as when they come into action. But what happens is, because the anger's been expressed, it's taken the pressure cooker lid off, and so it feels like we've let off steam like that. But in reality, it's actually built a deeper feeling to be angry for next time. So let's say that we have got anger, in the sense of we've just been angry at someone, because some people don't go through a whole day without being angry. So let's suppose that's the consideration. That's actually happened. That's an event that took place. What to do about that? Well, you can either justify it, or you can be regretful about it, feel guilty about it, or the best method would be that you realise that you've gone into a tiny state of debt, small state of debt, and you've got to make an effort to live in peace that will redress the balance, so that you not only change that effect on yourself, but you actually go into credit. So you make an intense effort, you put a full stop on what you've done, the mistake that's been made, recognise the mistake as something that was wrong, put a full stop, and you rectify it with an intense effort to be a peaceful soul, living, moving, speaking, walking, talking as Om Shanti, the embodiment of peace. Because that peace will remove the peacelessness, or transforms, a better word, because you're not really removing anything, you're transforming it from one thing to another. That's what a transformer does. It changes negative to positive, or positive to negative. So this anger that people use as a form of protection is just, the reason why they do use it to control others is because it's controlling them. Because our true nature is happiness. Because if our true nature was unhappiness, then we should be happy to be unhappy. But we're not. We're only happy to be happy. And as soon as someone gets angry, they make themselves unhappy, even though they say this person's made them angry. So when a person is angry, they're trying to control that person from doing that to them. And there was a beautiful story of Buddha, actually, where one of his disciples was getting very angry at Lord Buddha, and he just sat there and sat in peace and quiet while the disciple got angrier and angrier and angrier. So Buddha wasn't actually feeling agitated inside because of, the disciples that were witnessing Buddha do this wondrous act of non-interference, non-compliance, non-agreement with another person's anger was a wonder to behold. And they saw him just sit in silence and peace while the person was still challenging and abusing and accusing Buddha of this, whatever it was he was accusing him of. And Lord Buddha afterwards, another disciple said to him that I couldn't understand how you could be so peaceful, how you could be so still and stable, because I could see on your face it was like a line on water. There was nothing left of an effect on your face even. And Lord Buddha said, well, he had anger, and it was his anger, and he was trying to give it away because he didn't want it anymore, and I didn't want it, so I left it with him. And this was a wondrous point, a wondrous example of how it doesn't matter how much anger someone else has got, our own anger is a separate stock to that. And if there's not that anger inside, then you can't actually experience sorrow from someone else's anger, because sorrow is because of stored anger, stored irritation, stored negativity. So we're not actually reacting to their emotion. What we're reacting to is what that soul needs. So that soul would need peace. And this is a test that's coming my way. A person is offensive. I've got a choice. I can either become offensive or become defensive. But I choose to stay in the middle, which is what we call soul consciousness. That means neutral, non-affected by them trying to control you because they're controlled by themselves. So you're actually connecting with your inner peace, and that person's fuel will run out. If I offend, then I add fire to fire. And sometimes people call the Raj Yogis, the Brahma Kumaris, the spiritual fire brigade, because they go around putting out fires with their peace, with their coolness, with their lightness. So if you get heavy about life, then the attitude actually becomes your potential to develop more and more anger. So whatever comes along, try to make light of it, try to see the benefit in everything that happens, because everything has three aspects of time: a past, a present, and a future. And it doesn't really matter if I lose anything in this life, as long as I don't lose myself, because myself is the most precious thing that I live with for eternity, and the only thing that I live with for eternity. And that's also the good self. All the weaknesses, all the negatives are temporary. They're only things that we've acquired on our journey, and our eternal factors, the things that we look for in others: humility, love, peace, happiness. We look for that richness in a personality because it makes us feel rich also. So rich hasn't got anything to do with money. In actual fact, the money would sort itself out if you felt rich inside. And people that are getting angrier and angrier are actually chasing away their fortune, because the world of matter responds to good vibrations, good karma. So when you're actually connecting and communicating with your loving, warm, kind, generous self, generous in the form of vibrations and good wishes, you're very much in sync with yourself. And when you're very much in sync with yourself, it's very difficult to get angry with anyone or anything, because people only get angry because they're out of sync. They only have something to prove because they don't feel much self-worth. The male ego that's been trained in the human male for centuries is his greatest misfortune, really, because that was going to become the catalyst for making a great deal of bad luck come his way, because he's used that to control others, and it means that it's taken more control of himself according to the karmic law. And like attracts like, so angry people will find themselves in the company of angry people. Doesn't really matter. Past is past. It only matters what I do with that in the present. I'm not looking for things to make me feel guilty, to make me have regret. It's just a matter of fact. If people around me are, I find angry people at home, I find angry people at work, I find angry people wherever I go. It doesn't really matter. It's just that I've got to understand that I need to make much more of an intense effort on being a peaceful being with good wishes, making the attitude light, worthwhile, worth living with. We don't really live with anyone in particular. We live with our own manifestation, because whatever you see in others is actually in yourself. So although we talk about living with a person is a dream come true because they're such nice people, or they're only triggering the niceness in yourself. And so, never to feel that you're dependent on being around anyone or being with anyone, even when you remember God as an ocean of peace, an ocean of love, an ocean of joy. You're actually connecting and communicating with your own oceanic feelings of God. So this is a wonderful thing when, the Hindus visit the temples and the Christians look at Christ for his love. They're only actually connecting and communicating with the love and the divinity inside of them. If someone is in the presence of an angel and they feel like light, happy, then that's your own angelic form, your higher self, floating to the surface. So the original self is worth knowing because it doesn't have any weaknesses. It doesn't believe in weaknesses. It has no faith in weaknesses. Even if the worst, most degraded person was to come in front of them, it cannot believe that that's their true nature because it's not the angel's true nature. So get to know the angel inside yourself because it's your highest form, and nothing can actually affect you because it's more that you're not existing anymore. You're living because you're aware of those commodities inside of you. When people chase after material endeavours, they don't really live, they just exist. So their 70 will pass, they'll rebirth, and then they'll do the same again. They've left everything behind them, and now they're going to accumulate everything and acquire a very sour, bitter nature because they're out of sync with their true self. So when we say that we're all children of God, that's very kind of not really emphasizing the wonder of that statement, because it means that you're the highest children of the highest Father. So the one that is perfect, that doesn't have any negative emotions, negative feelings, is now giving you his company so that you can become the same. And this is why it's said that God made man in his own image, because he made a perfect soul. Because they were body conscious, they remembered just the human form, but it was the soul form. So anger is no great shakes, really. It will change from a very angry state that we're used to as a reactionary way of living, and it will change to a less reactionary where we realise we've got a choice. It will become an irritability, a frustration, but all you're doing is merging it, putting a full stop on whatever happens, whatever comes your way. It can only be powerful if you invite it into the present. That's why we say the present is a gift, because we exist only in this moment in time, and whatever you invite into that moment is your choice. You're the doorman, you're the author, you're the creator, you're the sculptor. You can write your own script from this point, but you have to use your virtues in life. Otherwise, and you have to be aware that you're using your virtues in life, and it changes all job into joy. So you're actually, it's not what you do, it's the way that you do it. So that's half an hour. That's normally saturation point. We've all got a saturation point where we can take no more. So we'll do a meditation to finish off, and see you again next time. So withdrawing from your form of the body. away from the feelings of the body, as if white light is travelling from the tips of your toes, withdrawing to a point at the centre of the forehead, where I, the eternal flame, reside. My feelings that I associate with are the feelings that I love to feel. I love peace. I love happiness. I love love. And I become aware that the more I love the commodities of virtues that I love, the more I become the embodiment of love. Love heals. Love answers all questions. Love removes questions, confusions. There are no problems where there are no questions. And so I put a full stop. The past is past. And I live in this moment, transforming the moment from ordinary to magical to special by being myself, my true self, my child of God self, my wealthy, healthy, perfect, angelic form. I am getting to know, and while I am getting to know, my highest, most benevolent, most generous, most kind self, I get to unknow the self that everyone has reminded me of, that everyone has reminded me about. God Himself is reminding me that I was perfect, free from worry, free from fear, and I am becoming perfect once more. I let go of my old self, my old belief in myself, and my new belief in the perfect angelic form of love that hides within under the dust is now being realized. Om Shanti.